The market does not care what you are going through. The attorneys are billing by the hour. The clock is running. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, sleep-deprived, grief-stricken, sitting across the table from someone who used to be your person, you have to make the largest financial decision of your life. Nobody warned you about this part. Today, in the Real Estate Psychology Lab, we look at 10 financial realities of divorce that most people do not see coming until it is too late. 1. The mortgage does not care about your divorce. A shared mortgage is a shared financial obligation regardless of what the divorce decree says. Daniel Kahneman's research on loss aversion shows that people consistently underestimate ongoing financial risks when they are emotionally overwhelmed. It sounds like this. The decree says they are responsible for the mortgage, but if they stop paying, my credit suffers, my financial future suffers, and there is nothing I can do about it. A shared mortgage is not just a real estate issue. It is a life issue that does not resolve itself with a court order. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps people separate what the legal document says from what the financial reality actually is, and make decisions based on the complete picture. Two very different conversations are happening. One about what the divorce decree requires. One about what the financial reality actually demands. Only one protects your future. 2. The unequal financial burden creates invisible wounds. When court orders require one partner to pay child support, alimony, or mortgage payments on a home they no longer live in, the psychological impact goes far beyond the financial. Research on perceived injustice by Leon Festinger shows that when people feel a situation is fundamentally unfair, they stop making rational decisions and start making emotional ones. It sounds like this. I am paying for a house I do not live in. I am paying for a life I am no longer part of. Every month, I write that check and feel like I am funding someone else's recovery, while mine is impossible. That feeling is not irrational. It is a completely understandable response to a genuinely difficult situation. Acceptance and commitment therapy helps people separate what is fair from what is actionable and focus energy on the decisions that can actually be influenced. Two very different conversations are happening. One about a financial obligation that exists, one about fairness that may never arrive. Only one can be acted on. 3. Forced co-housing has a hidden cost nobody calculates. When neither party can afford to move out and both continue living under the same roof after the marriage has ended, the psychological cost is significant and well documented. Research on chronic stress by Herbert Benson of Harvard Medical School shows that sustained emotional pressure impairs judgment, decision-making, and financial thinking. It sounds like this. We are done. We both know it is over. But neither of us can afford to leave. So we are living like strangers in the same house, trying to make it work for the kids while everything gets harder every day. Most couples in this situation have 3 common conversations. The first is the emotional conversation where they acknowledge that the marriage is over. The second is the financial conversation, in which they realize neither can afford to move out right now. The third is the practical conversation about how to manage daily life for the children. But there is a fourth conversation that many couples never have, and it can be one of the most helpful. Get creative before getting out. Explore whether a structured living arrangement with separate schedules, divided spaces, and clear agreements can reduce daily friction while both parties build toward a real transition. Not as a permanent solution, but as a practical bridge. This is one of the most underused options and often one of the most powerful ones. The cost of staying together is not just emotional. Every day of sustained conflict in a shared space costs both people in ways that never appear on a financial statement. Mindfulness-based stress reduction helps people in forced co-housing create psychological distance even when physical distance is not yet possible. 2 very different conversations are happening. One about not being able to afford to leave. One about what staying together is actually costing both of you every single day, and whether a thoughtful, structured bridge could make this chapter more manageable. Only one calculates the real price. 4. The buyout math is harder than it looks. One partner wants to keep the house and buy out the other. The desire is completely understandable. The execution is significantly more difficult. Richard Thaler's research on the endowment effect, shows that the partner who wants to stay consistently overvalues the home because ownership itself inflates perceived value. It sounds like this: I want to keep this house. The children need stability. I will find a way to make it work financially. I cannot imagine starting over somewhere else. The question is not just, do I want to stay? The question is, can I honestly afford to stay? The mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, alone, on one income, with new legal and financial obligations. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps people separate the emotional desire to stay from the financial reality of what staying actually requires. Two very different conversations are happening. One about wanting to keep the house. One about whether keeping it is actually possible. Only one is based on reality. 5. Equity disagreement turns numbers into weapons. Richard Thaler's endowment effect research shows that each partner overvalues their contribution to the home, both financial and emotional. What should be a straightforward calculation becomes a battle of competing narratives about who deserves more. It sounds like this: I did all the renovations. I made all the mortgage payments. I sacrificed my career to stay home and raise the children while they built theirs. Every contribution feels undervalued by the other side. And every conversation about equity becomes a conversation about the entire marriage. Motivational interviewing helps both parties identify what a fair outcome actually looks like, separate from what a winning outcome feels like. Two very different conversations are happening. One about the equity in the property, one about the equity in the marriage. Only one can be resolved in a real estate transaction. 6. The legal costs nobody budgeted for. Divorce attorneys charge by the hour. Every email, every phone call, every negotiation that goes one round too many. Research on decision fatigue by Roy Baumeister of Florida State University shows that people under sustained financial and emotional pressure make progressively worse decisions, not better ones. It sounds like this: I had no idea how much this was going to cost. Every time we cannot agree on something about the house, it goes back to the lawyers. And every time it goes back to the lawyers, it costs both of us money we do not have. The painful irony is this: the more you fight, the more you both lose. Every argument about the house has a price tag. Solution-focused therapy helps both parties ask one question: what decision could we both live with 2 years from now? That question resolves more conflict than any legal argument ever could. Two very different conversations are happening. One about winning the argument, one about calculating what winning is actually costing you. Only one makes financial sense. 7. The golden handcuffs. Behavioral economists have documented a phenomenon that has become one of the most financially paralyzing forces in the post-2022 real estate market. A mortgage rate locked in at 3% feels like a possession almost as valuable as the house itself. Selling means giving it up forever, and buying again means entering a market where 7% is the new reality. It sounds like this: I know we have to sell, I know the marriage is over, but we have a 3% rate. Do you have any idea what it would cost us to buy separately at today's rates? We would both be paying so much more every single month. That calculation is completely real and completely valid. But research on loss aversion by Daniel Kahneman shows that the pain of losing a favorable rate feels psychologically twice as powerful as the financial gain of moving forward would feel good. The golden handcuffs are real, but they are also a reason to stay stuck that feels like financial wisdom when it is sometimes financial fear, wearing a very convincing disguise. Two very different conversations are happening. One about a mortgage rate that is genuinely worth protecting. One about whether protecting that rate is worth the cost of everything else that staying together requires. Only one calculates the real number. 8. Starting over on one income is a real estate decision. Mavis Hetherington's 30-year research on families after divorce shows that the moment the divorce is final and the house is sold, one or both people have to find a place to live on a single income in a market that was priced for two. Research on financial vulnerability shows that this transition is one of the most financially exposed moments in a person's life. It sounds like this: I cannot afford anything in this market on my own. Everything I can afford feels like a step backward. I worked so hard to get here, and now I am starting from zero. That feeling is understandable, but research on financial recovery consistently shows that people who make clear-eyed decisions at this transition, even into smaller, less comfortable situations, rebuild faster and more solidly than those who stay frozen trying to hold on to what was. Two very different conversations are happening. One about what you are losing, one about what you are building. Only one moves forward. 9. The children as the financial argument. Research on divorce and parenting shows that children are sometimes used, consciously or unconsciously, as the justification for financial decisions that are really about the conflict between the adults. It sounds like this: I cannot sell because the children need stability. Or, we need to sell immediately because I cannot keep paying for a house that the children barely live in. Both of those statements may contain truth. Neither of them is purely a financial argument. Family systems therapy helps parents separate what the children actually need financially from what the adults need emotionally, and make decisions that serve both honestly. Two very different conversations are happening. One about the children's financial needs, one about what the adults need to feel justified. Only one is actually about the children. 10. The decision you make today lives with you for 20 years. Behavioral economists, including Daniel Kahneman, have documented that people consistently underestimate how long the consequences of major financial decisions last and overestimate how quickly they will recover emotionally from difficult ones. It sounds like this: I just want this to be over. I will agree to anything to make it stop. Or I will fight this until I get every dollar I deserve. Both of those responses are driven by the present moment. Neither of them is thinking about the life that comes after. Solution-focused therapy asks one question that changes everything. What does the person I want to be in 5 years need me to decide today? Two very different conversations are happening. One about ending the pain as fast as possible. One about building the life that comes after the pain ends. Only one is worth making a major financial decision for.
If any of this felt familiar, you are not alone. If you found this helpful, give it a like. It helps more people find us. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. This is Real Estate on the Couch.